Imagine an empire at the absolute peak of its power. A civilization so vast, so wealthy, and so mighty, it truly believed it was favored by the gods themselves. Its kings, draped in gold and jewels, ruled with an unshakable confidence, their every decree treated as divine will. Their armies were the stuff of legend, marching across continents, banners flying high, fearing no enemy because, for generations, they had known only victory. The capital city was a marvel of the world, its markets overflowing with treasures from every known corner of the earth, its grand buildings seeming to touch the sky. Life was good. The empire felt eternal. But eternity is a fragile thing. It all began with a single act of supreme arrogance. A line was crossed. A sacred law, ancient and revered, was shattered. In a distant, newly conquered land, a holy temple, a site of immense spiritual importance to the local people, was razed to the ground. Not for any strategic reason, but simply as a display of dominance. During the chaos, a high priest, a man of peace, was cut down. The local populace saw this not just as an act of war, but as a deep sacrilege, a defilement that would surely invite retribution from the heavens. They issued a warning, a prophecy of doom for the empire that had desecrated their faith. Back in the glittering capital, news of this warning was met with laughter and scorn. A curse from a conquered people? The emperor and his court dismissed it as the desperate ramblings of the defeated. They were the chosen ones, blessed by their own powerful gods. What did they have to fear from the deities of a broken nation? They celebrated their victory, blissfully unaware that they had just sown the seeds of their own destruction. The warning was clear, but it was arrogantly, fatally ignored. Soon after, a subtle but persistent shadow began to fall over the Golden Empire. It started in the fields. Crops that had always been bountiful began to fail for no apparent reason. Strange blights appeared, and once fertile lands turned barren. Then, the rot crept into the royal palace itself. The emperor's beloved son and heir, a strong and vibrant young man, fell ill with a mysterious sickness and died. His other children followed, one by one, in a series of tragic accidents and sudden illnesses. The royal line, once so secure, was suddenly hanging by a thread. The court physicians were baffled. The royal priests offered endless sacrifices, but nothing worked. With the succession in chaos, paranoia began to fester among the nobility. Powerful families who had served the throne for centuries started eyeing each other with suspicion. Whispers of betrayal and conspiracy echoed in the marble halls. Ambitious dukes and generals began to quietly gather their own loyal followers, sensing an opportunity in the growing instability. Every new king who managed to ascend the throne seemed to be plagued by misfortune. One was assassinated by his own guard. Another led his army into a disastrous, unforeseen ambush. A third was driven mad by grief and paranoia. Across the empire, the common people began to talk. They remembered the desecrated temple, the murdered priest, and the dire warning. They whispered of a curse, a divine punishment for the royal family's hubris. These whispers grew into a low rumble of discontent as their lives grew harder. The kings and their advisors, however, refused to listen. They were men of logic and power, not superstition. They laughed at the notion of a curse, blaming the empire's troubles on bad luck, incompetent officials, or the secret plots of their rivals. They tightened their grip, executing suspected traitors and raising taxes to fund ever more desperate military campaigns. But every action they took only seemed to make things worse. The final act was swift and brutal. The years of crop failures had led to a devastating famine that swept the provinces. The people, starving and desperate, rose up in open rebellion. At the same time, emboldened by the empire's internal chaos, old enemies and opportunistic warlords launched invasions from all sides. The once invincible armies, now poorly led, demoralized, and stretched thin fighting both foreign invaders and their own people, finally broke. The empire, which had stood for 1,000 years, crumbled into dust in a single generation. In the end, was it really a curse? Or was it something far more simple and far more terrifying? The temple's destruction alienated a new province, creating a permanent source of unrest. The heirs' deaths created a power vacuum that unleashed the nobles' greed. The leaders' arrogance made them blind to the real problems: failing agriculture, social unrest, and military overreach. They ignored every warning sign, treating them as insults rather than information. The empire didn't fall to magic. It was dismantled piece by piece by the predictable consequences of its own pride. A curse, it turns out, is often just what we call the consequences we refuse to see, right up until they consume us. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from history. See you next time.